my limited knowledge, soon to be broader as the years goes by, could shed some light from my perspective to the viewers. Thank you.
Well, diplomatic, I must say. Damn. Faye, the floor is all yours.
Oh, thank you. Good night, everybody. Welcome to Sex and Sexuality. I'm sure we'll keep you very much entertained. As Shahan said, I am Faye. I am 56 and proud of it. I think I started having sex, I think, at 19. Yeah, I was late to the thing. I was more interested in the books and trying to settle my life as it was. And I think I boxed myself in and I labeled myself so that when 50 came, I thought I had to do a recheck of a lot of things. And I guess that will come out. So one of the things I would say is, allow yourself to feel what you need to feel, to think what you need to think, and don't label yourself too much. Yep.
Tell the puppy hi for me.
Oh,
I think he's feeling neglected. No. I just didn't tell the doggy hi.
His domineering self.
No. Epiphany, someone says hi.
Hi, whoever that may
someone, I don't want to mispronounce the person's first name, something Joseph. I think it's Shell
Sheridan.
No, it's a Shel.
I will have to check the live, but whoever you may be, hi. I feel a little special being singled out.
Next up, we have Mia, our PrideUWI's vice president. So Mia, kindly introduce
Good night,
yourself.
everyone. You all hearing me, right?
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
I want to make sure everybody hear me. So hi, good night. As Shahan said, I am PrideUWI's vice president. My name is Mia, and I was listening to what everyone was saying, and I totally agree with what Sharon said because, like when you spoke about how Trinidadians love to have sex, but they don't love to talk about it. That is something I have experienced throughout my whole 20 years of living. So I am 20 years. And that's actually what has been the driving force behind the occupation I want to get into. Like I want to be a sex and relationship therapist because I have been a counselor to many and I have not had sex in my life. Right? I am a virgin. Right? But yeah, I have had many conversations, especially with young women in particular, about sex, consent, because a lot of people don't know what consent is. Still to this day, and like Sharon was talking about, communication is like something that seems very difficult for persons to have. So yeah, that's basically it. And I want to thank everyone in tuning and watching us. And I hope you guys learned something today because it's going to be a fun discussion. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you for being here, Mia.
Of course.
Thank you very much. Next to introduce themselves, we have Miss Brandy.
Hi everyone, good night.
Hi, Miss
It's been a while. Well, I'm no stranger to sex. I'm a worker of sex. Being trans, I was labeled sex worker, even though I was not a sex worker when I was, I first being trans, started my transition. And I always tell myself, I'm a worker of sex. If I'm having sex with any man, honey, I need things. Bills have to be paid. And I don't care how people see this. I am a worker of sex. I've always maintained that. I may not be a sex worker because I don't do sex work to live and survive, and so that's the definition. but I'm a worker of sex because I need things. If you need to sleep with me, I need to get my bills paid. And being trans, I was always labeled, as a sex worker. I would walk the street, and the first thing men would see is Gucci or else a prick boy, or, I wonder where's like to fuck she, that kind of thing. So I always had that from in my early days of being the hot brandy, the tall boots and panty and bra, and the wickedness, and your police telling me go home. I had my days, I had my fun, and now it's about still being this big woman. A lot of these young boys I meet out by the bar, they would always bring me something to drink, and it's like, I wonder if I could just spend one night with you to see what this is, what in my mind, because internet has educated a lot of people about sex, and they see sex now as a chick with a dick. They see sex as they have their fetish. They like these things that internet has shown them, and I lived through all of the experiences. So I'm here to share. I am 39 years of age. I might be more experienced than that in number, but we'll accept that for now. My time, I've been in the transitioning process for the last 22 years, and I accept all that where I'm at. And my experience doing this has, taught me a lot, and I would like to share to educate other persons. So that's what I'm here for.
Awesome introduction. I love that. And I love how you look tonight as well. No, Brand, you always has that extra pop of style when you see her in person and stuff. So next on the panelists, and last but certainly not least, we have Pride TT's chairman. So Rudy,
Okay,
care to
bless you.
introduce yourself? You feel invited up.
Good evening, folks. You
Good
know, at
evening.
36 years old and in a few months going to be 37, when I was asked to be on the panel, I had a look back down memory lane about my experience with sex and my own sexuality. And I'm sure we'll get into some of this later, but like some of the others, I was also a late bloomer by choice. I actually planned how I would lose my virginity, and I did it. Yes, according according. Yes, you're going to tell me I'm very
Control freak.
anal that way. No pun intended. But yeah, I planned my how I was going to lose my virginity. I waited until I was 20, and I wanted it to be something that I thought at that time was the right way to do it. And then for the most part of my life, I was in back-to-back monogamous relationships. And it was only actually in my very late 20s, early 30s, that I truly explored much more about my sexuality and about sex. And in those years, I learned so much that I never knew in all the time that I was, just with one person. And just to say that I learned things about sex and the power and the vulnerability of sex that can come with sex, that there's a difference between sex and love and sex and making love. And interestingly enough, when I started my advocacy work, it was in HIV/AIDS. And back then, everything was about safe sex. And unfortunately, I think that got equated to boring sex. And there's so much more you can do with sex and your sexuality nowadays that isn't looked at in a negative light. So I think people should feel more comfortable. And you can have all kinds of sex without going the full way if that's what you choose to. So I'm really excited to talk about all of those things and whatever we get into tonight, and to share as a gay man that has lived through different eras what sex and sexuality means for our population. So thank you, PrideUWI, for inviting me, and I'm very excited and a little bit titillated, especially when Sharon talks about the V word.
Yeah.
Wow. Sharon, well, it seemed like you got the ball rolling tonight. It's a good thing I started off with you.
Literally.
We just like to
I don't know when last Sharon got some balls rolling,
I
but
don't
hey.
do polls.
That's
Sorry,
oh my
that's
God.
okay, but that's okay.
my bad, my bad. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But if before we start, we would I was saying that this is one of Micah's babies. I would say that we are doing because this was his idea to do this event. We
So
would like
long in the
to,
making.
so long in the making, yes. We just like to thank all the Pride UA members for joining us. We have a few on the live and probably a few on the Zoom as well. So big up yourself, Pride UA. We have some members joining us. So yay!
Yay!
Right.
Our
So
babies.
we'll have a few contributions probably from some Pride UA members later on. So now on the agenda we would have I think y'all just blew past y'all opening statements because y'all just blew past that in the introduction very quickly. So I will hand it over to Micah now for a little segment I nicknamed Know Your Community's Definitions because I think we need it needs to be put out there and be more aware of a couple things that persons need to know when it comes to the TLGBTQI plus community. So Micah, take it away.
Hi, good night, everyone. My name is Micah. I am the president of PrideUWI, and I also belong to PrideTT. I will not be saying much today. The PRO will be taking the most responsibility, and the panelists who were invited would be doing what they were invited to do. Now, this segment that Shahan named Know Your Community, it's just like a little bit of information for those people who are like, they don't know what specific things are. So it's like some definitions that apply to the community. So I'm just going to read it through and like some concise definitions for it, just in case some people were wondering, like, what's the difference between sex and gender? What is sexuality? The definition of the letters in the LGBTQIA lettering thingamabob and stuff like that. So we're just going to go through this. And after this, then we would foster some discussions because we have multiple questions that we would have received from the survey that PrideUWI sent out. And I'm certain that there would be people on the live who would want to present their questions. We still have people still sending in questions right now that they want answered. So we have certain very competent panelists who would be able to share answers based on their experiences and their knowledge. So let's just dive in, yeah? So first and foremost, we have sex, right? These definitions come from a reputable source, right? So sex is defined as the physiological difference found among male, female, and various bodies. Sex includes both primary sex characteristics and it relates to the reproductive system, and the secondary sex characteristics, and it's not directly related to the reproductive system, such as breasts and facial hair and stuff like that. Yeah? We have sexuality. People's sexual interest in and attraction to another. That's sexuality in a little bracket there. Gender. Gender refers to the social distinctions associated with being male, female, or intersex. A person's sex, as determined by his or her biology, does not always correspond with their gender. And that is what it is we need to understand. There's a difference between sex and gender. And I hope that at the end of this discussion, this would become clear to persons who are unfamiliar with the distinction between both of them. Yeah? Then we have in the acronym, for lack of a better word, where you see BTQIA+, I'll just give you what some of the represent. Yeah? So we have L, which stands for lesbian, G, which stands for gay, B, which stands for bisexual, T for transgender, Q, which stands for queer, I for intersex, A for asexual, P for pansexual. It can also represent polyamorous, and it goes on. So, a gay person refers to someone who is attracted to someone of their gender. Gay is used as an umbrella term for men, women, and non-binary people. Bisexual, someone who is attracted to people of their gender and other gender identities. And I hope that at some point we would have a discussion where we would talk a bit about pansexuality. It's going to come down to the bottom. Then we have transgender. This is a wide-ranging term for people whose gender identity or gender expressions differ from the biological sex that they were assigned at birth. Queer. So the term queer is used as an umbrella term for those in the LGBTQIA+ community. It is an identity for someone who isn't straight, someone who isn't male or female, or someone who rejects cis heteronormativity. And based on my knowledge, I believe that the word queer was used as a derogatory term in the past. And over time, we have taken back the power, the derogatory power that was in the word queer, and we've now turned it around. So now the word queer is a sort of an empowering move. You understand? Yeah. Intersex refers to a term for someone born with biological sex characteristics that aren't traditionally associated with male or female bodies. Intersexuality does not refer to sexual orientation or gender identity. An asexual person, it refers to someone who experiences little to no sexual attraction to another person. They are not to be confused with aromantic persons. Aromantic persons experience little or no romantic attraction, but they still have sexual attraction to persons. Asexual people do not always identify as aromantic. Aromantic people do not always identify as asexual. More generally, some people, whether asexual or otherwise, identify as having a romantic orientation different than their sexual orientation. The terminology is similar: homoromantic, heteroromantic, biromantic, and so forth. Asexuality is also different from celibacy, where some persons make the decision not to engage in sexual acts with another person while still having the desire to be a sexual person. They are not asexual, but they are celibate. So they make a conscious choice, a conscientious choice not to engage in sexual activity, despite being a person who has sexual attraction to another. A pansexual person is someone who's attracted to persons of any and all gender identities, or someone who's attracted to a person's qualities regardless of their gender and their gender identity. Polyamorous. A polyamorous person is one who has romantic and sexual relationships with multiple partners simultaneously, where there is consent and communication with all partners. Here, the gender of the person or their partners don't matter. A kink, for persons who wish to know, a kink refers to a person's sexual and intimate desires, usually a non-traditional one. So if it is something stands out as, not falling under the normative way, it's regarded as a kink. So, some people like really attracted to feet, or other things. So that is regarded as a kink, something that really excites you, that perhaps does not fall into the category of being, traditional things that a person would be attracted to. An aromantic person refers to someone who generally does not experience romantic attraction. However, they can still have sexual attraction to persons. Polygamy. This is the practice of having more than one wife or husband at the same time. Only one person has multiple spouses of a different gender. It can be further divided into polygyny, one man marries multiple women, or polyandry, where one woman marries multiple men. A demisexual. A demisexual person refers to someone who generally does not experience sexual attraction unless they have formed a strong emotional connection with someone. But it doesn't necessarily have to be romantic. It's just a connection with someone, like a deep connection with someone. Gray sexual. So this was, prior to this, I was not too familiar with gray sexual. So it refers to someone who occasionally experiences sexual attraction, but usually does not. So it covers a kind of gray space between asexuality and having sexual identity. A cisgender person. A cisgender person refers to someone whose gender identity matches the sex that they were assigned at birth. A gender non-conforming person. This refers to a person who expresses gender outside of the traditional norms associated with masculinity and femininity. So not all gender non-conforming people are transgender, and some transgender people express gender in conventionally masculine or feminine ways. A non-binary person. This is a person who identifies as neither male nor female and sees themselves outside the gender binary. So binary means containing two. This is sometimes shortened to NB or ENBY. Yeah? A genderqueer person. Genderqueer is another term often used to describe someone whose gender identity is outside the strict male or strict female binary. They may exhibit both traditionally masculine and feminine qualities or neither. A gender fluid person. This term is used by people who identify and whose identity shifts and fluctuates over time. So sometimes these individuals may identify or express themselves as more masculine on some days or more feminine on some days. And it's fluid, meaning that it can change and it's not strict. A person who's gender neutral. This is someone who prefers not to be described by a specific gender, but prefers to be called they. So their pronoun would be they. So a person who identifies with the masculine gender would we use he or him, and feminine we use she or her, but a person who is gender neutral, we use they to refer to them. A drag king refers to a person who performs masculinity theatrically. It's usually performed by a female who dresses herself in male attire and presents a masculine persona. And a drag queen is a person who performs femininity theatrically. It's usually performed by a male who dresses himself and presents in a feminine manner. I hope there's more to discuss, but I hope that this information would have helped someone, and something that I would have said here would have, enlightened you, and you'd be like, wow, I did not know this. Like I didn't know about the gray area aspect. I really didn't know about that. So this seminar has already begun to do something. It helped me. Yeah, so I hope that it helped some of you guys too. So I'm gonna hand back over to Shahan, who's gonna be leading the majority of things. I'll happily pop in when she requires my help, when they require my help. But other than that, I'm here looking and trying to, to learn some stuff too now. You understand? Yeah, peace and love.
We all are trying to learn from anything tonight. Thank you so much, Micah.
You're very welcome.
So just a little thing so that we the panelists, we all could big up ourselves. We have 43 people on our Facebook Live right about now.
Hey.
So big up yourselves, big it up. So we're gonna get into the questions. The fun part where the panelists interact with everyone now. Because I think we bored you enough with our definitions, but
no, not at all. It was enlightening.
I think it was necessary because for people to understand, because some may be confused as to what they may identify as, etc. So that is what I included in that, and I asked Micah to speak of because I think he would have been able to do a better job than me.
Never. Not at all. I'm sure you would have done a better job than me. But let me just take this time to pop in that I think that this definition thing was really important, because just last week I was speaking to someone and I referred to him as being heterosexual, and he thought that I was calling him gay because he was not familiar with the term heterosexual. So I think that these things that we're doing here, it is necessary, because there are a lot of people who don't know the terms for what they identify as. For persons who seek to, identify themselves or put themselves within a bracket. They don't know the terms for, the area in which they belong or where on the spectrum they belong or the term that describes them, like cisgender and stuff like that. A lot of people who are not queer or who are not into queer studies or interacting with queer people have no idea what a cisgender person is. And because the word sounds foreign, you just think that, if you call them cisgender or heterosexual, you're insulting them because it kind of sounds, not normal now. So it sounds not strict, Yeah, so I'm handing back over to you now, Sharon. Take it.
So I think we will have two different Q&A sessions.
Mm-hmm.
Two, because we sent out a questionnaire prior to the event, and some questions were asked upon that. So I think, and I specify that the questionnaire will be given a little more preference.
Yeah.
There aren't much questions via the questionnaire, and then we would go to persons who commented and asked questions along that line. So the questionnaire we had, it was asked that you put your name on alias if you wish your actual name not be out there. So the names of the persons who will be called, so that they know that this is their question that they are identifying as. Please note that some of the questions were filtered out because, taking into consideration, some of our panelists may not have been able to answer it. So some questions would have been taken out, but I have it, so I will try to get the questions and the rest of the questions answered for you and hopefully email
Perfect.
you those answers. So
Wow.
the first two questions was by our lovely president, Mr. Micah Clark, and he asked, what is the possibility of being homosexual and still having a romantic attraction to a female? So I'm opening that question to anybody. Would anybody like to have a crack at that question?
Can I start?
Please do.
Sure.
You want me to start? Because it's like we always have these discussions and meetings anyway, and you guys know.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I remember, I think when me, Micah, and Faye were going home, remember, we was discussing something similar to this, right? So I always, well, from what I know, right, like what I've read, because I do gender studies as well, sexuality is along a spectrum, right? Like there is the far left, the far right. Like some people would say like there's some persons who are extremely straight and there are some persons that are extremely gay, right? Because obviously if it wasn't a spectrum, we would not have things such as bisexuality, pansexuality, asexuality, and so forth, right? So I would say like it's a spectrum, right? Because sexuality is not just one thing you could experience, right? Because I'm sure, I don't know for everyone here, but for like the first 13 years of my life, I was like, you know what? I on this part of the spectrum, I'm really straight. Like I just want to get dick down. Like, that type of thing now, you know what I'm saying? And then I think at the age of 14, right, I like this girl, right? Now my thing is though, during that time I was trying to like figure out like, wow, does this mean I'm gay now? Because it's like, you hit with this. It's like, okay, so I like this person who's of the same sex. And I was thinking about it, right? Because at that point, like I started to realize that, oh my gosh, like I really like this girl and it's nothing like, it's just sexual attraction. It's like the whole 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of attraction that was going on. So that is like when I kind of had the notion that it's something along a spectrum, because there were times that I was attracted to like all forms of people, like no matter their gender. Like that's when I realized that I was pansexual like a long time ago, because it's like I met this non-binary person like along my life before I even knew what non-binary was. Like that's when I realized like this is there's something like a spectrum. So like you could still like as Michael was saying, you could still be homosexual and have romantic feelings for a female person because it's along a spectrum. It's not something that's just fixed. It's like fluid now, right? I don't know if you all understand what I'm trying to explain, but it's like that. It's not just something that's stagnant. It's something that's fluid. You all understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I feel like I'm sounding so dumb.
No. I
don't know how to,
think we
I don't know how to
understand what you're
like
saying.
it's not something that's fixed. It's something that's along a spectrum. So like you could have feelings of like persons of multiple gender identities, persons of multiple sexual identities. So that is why it's not something that is fixed. It's fluid. You can like who you want. Is basically what I'm trying to say.
Now, the reason I know the answer to this question, but the reason why it is I presented this question is because there might be people experiencing the same thing that I would have experienced before.
Right.
Because I identify as a homosexual, undeniably and unquestionably. I can never in life see myself having sex with a woman. But I've always felt, like I can be close to a female, and I realized that a few times. And then when I went on the hike, the PrideTT hike, there was this young lady who came. I was with the events manager, and she had some friends, and one of her friends sat me down in the water, and
Mr.
she's
Clark,
like,
be careful what you're saying here.
can I take this water and pour it on you? And I felt so loved and so appreciated. I legit fell in love with her. But I can never. No,
My
it's the
feelings
truth.
are being hurt.
Yes.
And I
No,
told
no.
her that. I told her that. I was like, Teresa, I think I'm in love with you. But
Says the person who has wait, let me interject. Shahan says the person who says they have psoriasis. What?
What? I do understand. Yes, but towards men. But I can't engage in having sex with a woman. But I felt so emotionally loved.
Kennedy wants to know what
so
was
good.
in the water. All right, Sharon, we coming to you now, But let me say something. Micah, you and I will have a falling out because you know how I feel about those things.
Wow,
you know how I feel about those things. We have this
Everyone
discussion
is a
already.
witness to what it is the PRO is saying.
Yes, you know how I feel about those things. We had this discussion already. Sharon, go ahead, darling.
Well, a couple of things I wanted to point out, and I think is important to note that when we think about people who love differently, like ourselves, people tend to only see us from a sexual perspective. And I think that does us a great disservice, because when I define as lesbian, one of the first questions that people ask is about my sexual activity. And I always say we don't presume that, we don't get into all of that with heterosexual people. So I say being lesbian is more than me being physically attracted to women and having sex with women. I am more than a sexual being. So the sum total of my lesbianism is more than just sex, for one. And Micah, let us be clear that all of those things that you define are labels. And labels are given to make sense, for us to make sense of the world that we live in. But as Mia just articulated, we really have come to realize that sex and sexual feelings are really very fluid for most of us. But we were taught and conditioned that we had to be in one thing or the other. And as the world is evolving, we're recognizing, then wait a minute, I may be predominantly heterosexual, but I'm having feelings for someone of my same gender. What does that mean? Is that something that I should act on? And most of our sexual repression comes because of those definitions. Like, I remember I had a friend who is a gay man, and I remember he came over to my house and he told me that he had sex with a woman. And I asked him, how was it? And he said it was wonderful. It did not change his sexual orientation. He was still homosexual. But what it was the shame. He said, please promise not to tell anybody, because he didn't want any of his gay friends to know that he engaged with a woman, because he thought that would make them reject him or whatever. And I said to him, again, you're coming with the conditioning. We are taught that if we are homosexual means that we're supposed to fit into this box, and just like everything else in life, sex is the one thing that we seem to want to call clear and fast. Like if you go to school and you like math and you start to study math and you decide, oh my God, I like history, instead you could go and study history. Nobody has a problem with that.
Yeah.
The minute you say, okay, I like dick and I only like dick, and suddenly you get a whiff of a pussy and you say, you know what, I'd like to taste that. Like, oh my God, you must be heterosexual. How you could be how could you be a good gay man and be thinking about vagina?
I felt like that. I felt the pressure. I legit felt the pressure because at a certain point, Miss Motley, I thought that I was
Mike, I'll call her Sharon. She don't like that.
Sharon, I thought that I was heterophobic, because like I just felt a certain sort of animosity against heterosexual people who made non-heterosexuals feel so horrible. Like I used to legit feel upset and want to puke. I'm not even exaggerating. When I see like two like persons of the opposite gender like interacting with each other like too intimately. Yeah, dog. Like, sometimes you're on like trying to watch some movies online and get away, and you see like some pop-ups with heterosexual people trying to go at it. Dog, I used to slam the computer screen and thing because it legit used to make me so upset. And I'm not even exaggerating, it used to make me so upset. I just said to myself and I was like, my God, no. The heterosexual people are valid too, And then I got over that.
There's something like me last night watching a movie because I got stuck watching a movie.
Yeah.
And it was these heterosexuals, and I'm like, we all know you want to kiss her. Would you just kiss her already and let's move on with the storyline?
Yeah, they've given us enough shit. I can't.
This is 2:00 this morning, eh?
Shahan,
darling.
It's interesting because when I grew up I always say the first time that someone told me what I was, and I think I spoke about this on another call we had, was when I went to QRC, to secondary school. And however, I have always liked breasts. Like, I just love how breasts look. And I like how they feel and things like that, right?
Okay.
Over the years, I have become very close to some of my girlfriends. I've even asked some of them if they're interested in having a child, but that's a whole other part of the discussion. But to answer Micah's question, I'm saying all this to answer Micah's question, is that I think it's very possible to have along the spectrum, as Mia said. At least speaking for myself, I'm fine staying in the box of gay, male, homosexual, but I would not lie. I've had very strong feelings for one or two of my girlfriends over the years, and I would explore that. And it's not, but I want to add, interestingly enough, in our society, it seems still that women will not be open to a bisexual man or a gay man. That how are we getting? How are we going to figure out the spectrum? How are we going to figure out the spectrum if these? I'm not getting a chance here, man. Okay.
So no, because what? Hey, that's not true. I don't mean to cut you off. Continue.
Let me take it a step further. I am not attracted to men sexually. However, gay male porn turns me the fuck on.
Girl, same. Same.
I love you.
no. I have to interject on this point. I have to interject. Like, I know a lot of people will react badly to that statement, but I think we must all admit that at some point we probably would have seen it, even if it wasn't passing, and it would be so intriguing that you will stop and be like, "How they doing that?" I know I was reacting like that. I'm like, "Yo," but okay.
It's like, that is hot. How they doing it?
I agree. Like I agree. Like a lot of I agree with what Faye was saying, because what I realized too, since this quarantine, I have just been binge watching like a lot of Thai gay love stories. And when I tell you, I be living for these scenes that keep coming on, and I'm like, yes, get it. But I don't know if it's turning me on, or the fact that whenever I see queer stuff on screen, I just get excited. It's probably a combination of both. And I was just like, wow, like this is so much more entertaining than like, watching a man and woman kiss. I don't know, like I don't know if that is heterophobia, but yeah, I understand what Faye was saying. I love it. Continue. I don't mean to cut you off.
That's no problem. I agree with what Faye is saying. Up to what Faye say, I have seen such in passing. I never sit down to watch it. I don't think I would. Who knows? Right? But in terms of what went down with Micah on certain height and my little tinge of jealousy, I could agree because I do not have a sexual attraction to men. However, Micah is like this little cute individual. They just have this cute person there that is we just be attracted to in other ways other than sexually. So that is Micah knows it. So
You're letting the secret out.
yes, girl.
I'm feeling like I'm on a soap opera, okay?
Yes.
So sorry.
Because I just call Micah Papi and I tell Micah ain't nobody can call
That
him
is
that
so true.
other than me. So I know he gets a little jealous. They went on next in the video wanted to pour water on Micah's head and them kind of thing. So Micah need to me and Micah and I will have a talk about that later.
Amen. Now, Brandy, what contributions can you make to the discussion? Because I have not heard anything from you as yet.
So I kind of had my hand raised for a little while, and I was
so
kind
I
of.
know this dude.
I
This dude, Marcus.
Yeah, and I was kind of. I kind of actually excited to see Mia because Mia has been one of my students last year, 2 years ago. So it was nice to actually see her putting in practice some of the things that she has engaged with in the classroom. And it's nice to hear new generations talk about their experiences, labels, challenge the binary while still trying to let society know that there's a particular identity which becomes a struggle, which I'm hearing that sexuality, gender is unsettled. Automatically it is unsettled, and we should not look to have fixed boxes, but yet those same fixed boxes allow for us to have a certain level of comfort and identity in specific spaces within the gay community, within the heteronormative altogether. And I'm liking the fact that we're all open to everyone's experiences, because what that does for me is it tells me that the fight for gender justice is that it is for gender justice. It is not to put a label on I am fighting for gay rights, full stop. I'm fighting for trans lives, full stop. But I'm really trying to use a language that allows loving people, people who love people, people who express in a particular way are allowed to be given rights and access to things. And the fact that young people like yourself have mediums to come forward and share your experiences and be brave is making that kind of impact. And so Mia, I really wanted to ask you, right? You're not getting any points for this, right? No grades for this, right? But tell me, as a young person who has engaged with the language for a long time, knowing what lesbian, gay, non-binary, binary, what those look like, right? What has the struggle been like to be included in a space that fights for inclusion, but still you don't identify with almost anything that exists there. How does that impact you as an individual, right?
Okay, thanks for the loaded question, Marcus.
Yeah.
Well,
And you
okay, I
understand,
want
and you understand why this question is important, because I said
yes,
earlier, Club, our community is unsettled,
right.
and we're constantly struggling to fit into a society that needs boxes. In
Mm-hmm.
order for you to at least be considered, you have to be in a box, right? So I want you to share with us what is being in a box at this 2020. What kind of struggle does that mean for young people who don't fit in any boxes? So yeah.
Okay, well, first I want to just start by saying that sometimes when we're confused about something, right? Like instead of people like educating themselves about something, they'll just like remain in their ignorance. Like some people will just rather remain ignorant than go and educate themselves is one. And then two, like people tend to like they have this thing where I don't know if it is they're fearful or they just don't want to take that leap of faith and learn something new. Like things that different tend to scare people a lot, right? And if it's something that's different, it's like, like should I take this leap of faith and go and find out what this person is trying to educate me about? And which is one. And then with regards to what I said in the very first discussion about sexuality being along a spectrum, like I would think that a lot of queer people for themselves, they tend to use these labels. Well, and I guess in my experience with the queer persons I've spoken to, not necessarily for themselves, right? But for like other persons to understand like what they're trying to explain.
True.
You understand? Because it's like, okay, so for me, let me give you an example. I remember when I was trying to explain to someone what someone who was pansexual is, right? And the response was, "Are you attracted to pans? Like cooking winner?" And I was like, "You really telling me this now? Pans?" And I think I said it in one of the meetings too. And like I'm like, how you get pan? You understand? But in the back of my mind, I'm telling myself, like, you have to explain to persons who are unaware of certain things. Like I said, with the ignorance, this person clearly was ignorant, didn't know what they were speaking about. And they just said it, right? And like, with regard to me labeling myself in front of this person, I was able to educate them, like being aware of a label, right? Because for me personally, right, I don't just go around announcing to the world about my labels unless somebody asks me about them, right? I'm a very open person, as everyone in PrideUWI knows. Like, I have no problem speaking about the labels people assign to me or, what people perceive of me when they first interact with me, because it's not really something that I'm fazed by, right? I've just reached that point in my life now. Right? But I just feel, as to what Marcus is to answer his question, when it comes to labeling, I think it's more to kind of erase confusion and like try to give like a standstill, right? Because even with everything that's going on, like all the, I would say, marches for like trans rights, gay rights, queer rights, women's rights, all these good things, there are still gonna be some people that gonna be like, well, oh, I don't really agree with what you're saying. Like if like I must know what, like people have this thing, well, you have to tell me what you are so I will know not to offend you.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody has ever heard that. Like you have to let me know. So I think that's why sometimes labels are important, right? Because especially with the whole thing with like pronouns, right? Pronouns seem to be very difficult for some persons. right? Even outside of the community and within too, right? Because it's like we still live, even though it has gotten better, we still live, particularly in Trinidad and Tobago, in a society where the binary is still uplifted.
Mhm.
You know, and like I experience that in my day-to-day life because I have a lot of straight female friends that say things that I necessarily don't really agree with as a queer person and as somebody who's a feminist and who has spoken to people for a very long time about gender identity and sexuality. And I have to like remind myself that her walk of life is not like mine, right? And that for her, like a lot of straight people need these labels, right? Because they don't want to offend you. Which is nice because some of them really don't want to offend you and they want to like understand. Like she's the type of person who would be like, you know what, I want to understand like what these things mean now. Because for a long time she still thought transvestite was okay to say. And I had to explain to her the implications of that and stuff like that because she always wondered, so like why it have so much letters and why you always have to label yourself? And it's like it's not that we want to label ourselves, right? It's because we want to like have like something definite we could give you when you ask us these questions.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like a definition we could give you. Like what definitions are for. Like you could cloud, like you could erase some judgment,
For
like any
clarity.
confusion. For, yes, for clarity.
Yeah.
You know, so you wouldn't come and tell me, oh, so you attracted to pants? You
There you
know?
go.
So that's basically good.
Sharon.
I don't know if I
Yeah.
answered your question, but it's basically
Well, there's no right or wrong in gender and sexuality. Firstly,
no,
yeah,
there
it's about your
isn't.
experience. But I also have one
Yes.
more question for you, and I think it's important that young people really share and help us to unpack and complicate this even more because that's what gender does. It complicates society, and that's what society is afraid of.
Mm-hmm.
As much as we see the benefits through your explanation for the labels, right? What's the line between labels for information and othering? When does it
Wow.
when does it become a label for education and when did it become well as the others out there?
Okay, well,
Can I just
Valid
jump in?
question.
I'm sorry. Can I just jump
Sharon.
in?
of course, Sharon.
Because the conversation is getting very academic. And what I want to say is that education is a privilege. And so herein comes the empathy. So all of these things that we learn folks know, we have to remember that a lot of people have no clue. So even as an experienced, educated lesbian woman, some of the terminology is new to me and the learning is constant and ongoing. Take that to somebody who's had no exposure whatsoever, who's even listening on this tonight with a view to trying to understand how do we make it as simple as possible beyond labels, because I tell people it's about human feelings.
Yeah.
We all want to
True.
be loved and we all want to be accepted, you know? And how I love is how you love. It might just manifest in different forms, but love is love, right?
Yes.
But I take
Yeah, I
it
agree.
as the vagina, my mouth, wherever. Love is love. And so
True.
even as we try to communicate, let us also try to make it so that somebody who is like, oh my God, I wanna understand, but I am clueless about even me or your friend, you know? Sometimes you say, forget the labels. How do you feel about the person you love or attracted to? That's how I feel about the person I love and I'm attracted to. Forget labels, you know? Let's bring it down to some human, because people could understand that and maybe empathize with feelings. And so we have to find a language that is easy to communicate and not so academic.
Okay.
Mia, before we go back to you, Amanda, I saw that you had your hand up. So I assume it's a contribution. So what say you? Nothing.
The
Oh,
person next.
Yeah,
Oh,
Amanda.
so Shahan, as you mentioned, Amanda,
Uh-huh.
apparently she made a comment. Amanda, we're seeing people responding to your comment on the live, but I'm not seeing your comment. Oh, right. So if you can share again, please.
Hey. Very, very faint.
Talk a little louder.
Hear me now?
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, we're
Hi.
hearing you.
Hi. The question I asked on Facebook was concerning one of the definitions that Micah gave at the very start, and that was if kink is the same as a fetish. But before he gets to answering that, one of the comments I had was, I appreciate the definitions. I see how they are useful, and I agree with Sharon in terms of how they help us to make sense of the world. Further to that, however, these really remain labels, and in many ways, they are used within the community to police behavior, and some of the same problems that queer people find when amongst non-queer people or people who don't think of themselves as queer, they find also within the community when these labels are so strongly applied. So in some ways, the insistence on labels from the experiences that I've had, the insistence on labels can be damaging, can be traumatizing, and always it instructs us. These things instruct us that always we must exercise compassion and exercise empathy and always try to gauge where the person we're dealing with is at. One of the situations I've seen happen several times over the years is when a person who people are accustomed seeing with one set of people decides that they're going to date another set of people, suddenly they're denied access to certain spaces. So I've seen queer people who identify as queer, being denied access to queer spaces sometimes simply because, well, oh, she used to exclusively date women and now she dating men, what that means, And then biphobia is a real thing.
Yeah.
Transphobia is a real thing. So in these ways, we have to constantly gauge how far we are going in terms of the application of labels and what those things mean. So now that I've said that, if Micah could address the difference between a kink and a fetish, that'd be nice.
Shahan, just before Micah deals with the definition, I want to endorse what Amanda just said, because for me, the labeling has been more important for me. I have never found it necessary for other people. Like it's not like you go around asking people to give you all their categories when you meet them. But for some reason, and I'm generalizing, straight people want to know what box we fit into, and that creates all the othering and the stuff. And
yeah.
But for me, we need to understand the labels sometimes for ourselves internally, so we could navigate like our relationships, and if you're having a feeling for someone, what does that really mean, so that you don't hurt people or hurt yourself indirectly or involuntarily. But for me, I really don't give a shit why do you need to know my label to figure me out?
Oh, wow.
I am Rudolph Hanamji, and in certain settings, you might need to know that I am qualified in a certain field. In another setting, you might need to know that I'm a certain age, or in another field, you might need to know that I like red wine. But generally speaking, I don't need to explain my labels to you, unless we are getting into some kind of a relationship, like a friendship or a romantic relationship. then obviously you get to know more about somebody on that level. But in a professional capacity, I don't need to know what Brandy's label is to give her a job. I need to know what she's qualified and what her experience is. So what the fuck?
Agreed.
But that,
Agreed.
I'm just saying, Amanda's point, if when you break it down on that level, is like these labels, other people use them against us or ourselves. But I think it's really up for us to figure out what we are about.
True.
Hi.
And
I'm
another
looking for this
point
raise hand option and I
is
can't find it.
concerning the. Hi, are you there?
Yeah, we're hearing you.
Right. Another point is just the conflation of sex with sexuality. I like what Sharon said about, your sexuality is just one aspect of your whole lived experience. And then sex is just one aspect of your sexuality. A person could live their entire life having never had sex and still have a profound understanding of their sexuality and still have profound expression of their sexuality. So
I agree completely.
in thinking about these things, it's important for us to be guided and with an understanding of just how vast our lived experiences and not reduce ourselves in the same way, in the same ways in which wider society, and by wider society I mean people who don't think of themselves as part of a queer community, not reduce ourselves in those ways. Yes.
Hi.
Thank you.
Can I add?
So I see Ronel wanted to contribute.
Yeah,
So
I am
Ronel,
looking for the raise hand option the entire time and I'm not seeing it on my
It's
my
on
thing
the
here.
more side, Ronel.
It's still not. I don't know. Anyway, it's fine. I'm
the fight up
speaking
here
here now.
there,
Yeah. Really interesting conversation so far. And I take everything that everyone says and all that, but I come from a very academic, Sharon, perspective. And I think that sexual theory and the psychology of sexuality and all these fun things, it really is quite interesting, huh? If you are interested in learning more and understanding more about it, you all could always read up and look up stuff online and all that. It really is really interesting. And just to go back to, I shared a couple things in the chat, so you all could check them out after, or look at the links. And
But
these are
Ronel,
usually
excuse
things.
me.
Yeah.
Can you send it? Can you send it to me afterwards so I can share it to the other spaces?
Yeah, sure.
Thanks.
So these are usually things that I would use to break down theories of sex and sexuality and so on, when teaching gender classes and whatnot, and doing training sessions and so on with persons. And it's interesting, there Amanda asks about the fetish and all of that. And she asked Mike about it because of his definitions. So before I go back to what I wanted to speak about, fetishes are really just, like I said in the group chat here, part of sexual paraphilias, right? So, we're learning some new words here tonight too, right?
Yeah,
A paraphilia really basically is something or a sexual act or sexual behavior, by definition, right? That goes beyond or above the quote-unquote norm, and understanding culture and society, and the fact that norms are relative. Different cultures, different people, different societies, they will have different sexual norms and sexual standards and so on, right? Under which certain behaviors would fall under. So a fetish really is a really loose word that persons use in today's world. Like sometimes somebody might like shoes and say, oh God, I have a shoe fetish. But they don't really have a shoe fetish. They just really like shoes. Fetishes usually are things that prompt or aid in some sort of sexual arousal, or oftentimes are necessary, because just like other behavior, our sexuality is something that is conditioned as well. If you jerk off or make yourself come to a certain type of porn for a certain number of years, your body and your sexuality and your sexual mind would then become so accustomed to that type of stimulus, really. And sexuality is so malleable, you won't believe, it's so interesting. I have heard so many people speak about how they go through over the years in their life, different types of sexual behavior, different types of pornography that they may look at for arousal and so on. And at one point, you know, looking at maybe a lesbian interaction might turn you on and, you know, make you get off, while looking at gay men have sex with each other, or looking at, you know, like orgies or transgender persons, or, you know, so it's so malleable. And I think that we need to allow ourselves to be sexually curious as persons. And the society that we live in, it doesn't allow for that, but it really definitely does not stop us as persons being curious. It is so instinctual to be sexual. But some persons also identify as asexual, and that's perfectly fine as well. You know, so yeah, that whole idea of fetishes falling under the paraphilia, and kinky sex falling under a sexual paraphilia as well. You know, so it's really interesting to look at when you think about yourself and you ask yourself, hey, what are some things that turn me on? What are some things that get me off? Right? I wouldn't tell you about myself, not on this platform. Right? But just to go back up to the first thing I sent on the charm circle, it's really interesting to look at. If you all could open the link, or maybe just Google it. The charm circle, it really highlights that hierarchy that society imposes upon us. You're either in or you're outside of that circle. So you either engage in immoral or bad sexuality according to these social constructs, or you engage in good or moral sexuality. And as queer persons, a lot of times the type of sex or sexuality that we would engage in would not be for procreative reasons.
Yep.
And oftentimes the queer community is bashed for that. Well, you know, that can't be good sex because you can't make a child out of that. But straight, quote unquote, straight heterosexual people have sex for pleasure without procreation all the time. So aren't they also existing outside of this good sex, moral sort of construct, right? That we put people under. You know, so from my years of like being an activist, being sex positive, and engaging in sexual theory, I have seen so much of morality and sexuality being intertwined and related to one another. And people use persons' sexuality, their sexual behaviors, their sexual talk, their conduct, all of these things to then say, hey, you're a good person or you're a bad person, to really then evaluate morality. And that is so ridiculous, extremely ridiculous. So in these times, you know, I know it's a lot of young people on PrideUWI and probably a lot of young people looking, how have we even moved away from this? This charm circle was created a while ago, and there are a lot of more things that we could add to that as modern people in 2020. How has sex and sexuality even evolved? We have cyber sex, you have sexting, you have the dick pics, you have sending nudes. We have all these things, and people, like guys would approach a lot of times and they'd be like, hey, send a pic of this, I want to see that. Girls might ask guys for certain things, you know. So it's interesting to see how we have become cybersexual as well, and how that together with queer identity has evolved. It's really interesting because when you go on like the Tinder and the Grinder and Adam for Adam and all these different apps, which ideally lead to some type of, you know, sexual interaction and so on, is really interesting to see how things evolve, and how even as LGBTI queer persons or persons who you know, have an alternative sexuality, is really interesting to note and to see that the patriarchy, I must bring up the patriarchy earlier, I wouldn't be feminist if I don't, right? It's really interesting to see how within our patriarchal system, certain gendered norms are also applied and mapped on to non-heteronormative bodies. Yeah, so heteronormativity is even mapped on to queer and non-heteronormative bodies. So you would hear things like, who is the bottom and who is the top? Who is the man in a relationship?
I was
Right?
gonna
In a homosexual relationship.
You know, and it's really interesting because it all comes down to who does the penetration, takes it. And
Yeah, as a
within that
place of power or
framework,
not.
yeah, within that framework, then we start to masculinize the penetrator, right? The one who's giving or penetrating, and then
Feminine.
feminize the one who's receiving. So it's really, really difficult and complex and layered and confusing because we live in this patriarchal system that we all want to dismantle, but it continues to have such an effect on even queer and alternative persons who display alternative sexualities.
That's
Because
why we
it is
need a few of
it's
these.
a fact that persons, I would given queer persons, gay persons, lesbians, bisexuals, you know, the patriarchy is so insidious that we feel that pressure to be the man in the relationship or the woman in the relationship, or act as I should as a straight woman, or act as someone else should as a straight man, you know. I mean, I have a lot of gay friends, and you all know, and I'm not gonna call names, of course, but one, I went to a little lime, right? So everybody sharing the story, so I'm gonna share the story. Went to a little lime with some friends, and a guy met me for the first time, a gay guy, and he was like, you know, you give off big dick energy, and I was like, me? Nah, I don't think so. He was like, yeah, I don't mind being pegged by you. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. You know, and then another one of my gay friends said it as well. And I was like, that's interesting. So you see, like we go back again to understanding that difference between your sexual expression, your gender expression, who you are romantically attracted to, you know, who has your heart to heart, who you want to have sex with. You know, Marcus does a lot of research on MSM, men who have sex with men, right? Who do not identify as being homosexual, but who would enjoy men and men's bodies and enjoy having sex with men, right? I have a straight guy friend who he was very, very curious at a time, and he would oftentimes point out to me, hey, this fella real good looking boy, that guy real looking, hey, your cousin real nice. And that would just be like attraction. He wouldn't be afraid, well, because I impart real feminist knowledge on him, but he wouldn't be afraid to say, I'm attracted to so on and so on, but I might not want to have sex with them. I still want to have sex with girls, but I find men attractive, you know. So I think as human beings, we all are aesthetically driven. We like to look at each other, we like to look at bodies, we like to look at different persons with their gender identity, their style, their fashion, how they carry about themselves. And all these little things add to how we feel about people. It adds to what we are attracted to. You know, I like skinny boys, so that's like my attraction. You know what I mean? And that mightn't be the norm, but it is just how I feel. But I am able to appreciate women and all different types of gender identities and so on. But it all goes back again to society telling us what we should find desirable and what is not desirable. And when society plays such a heavy role in telling us about desirability, of course, from this very male-centered sort of perspective, when society tells us that, oftentimes we feel like, hey, yeah, I think this is what I have to be because society says so, you know?
Thank you. Thanks.
So how much are we really willing and invested? I know we all are in disrupting that narrative, in shaking that up, in like personally for me on my Instagram, I would share disruptive things all the time, not just because I am rebellious and I'm a rebel, but because I want people to start seeing their normal as something else. And you know, eventually you will have that tipping point where those very heteronormative patriarchal models of sex and bodies and sexuality, where it becomes, you know, not the norm anymore, and we start to see things along a spectrum, like everyone said, along this continuum, and being so very fluid, right? You know, so yeah, just a lot of things to think about. It really, I
Thank you
was
so
really
much,
interested to
Ronald.
hear this discussion tonight, because sex and sexuality is, I could go on and on, it's never ending. It's really interesting stuff. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ronald. We
Guys,
have a few questions to pop in.
if we could stick a pin in that taking a line out of Rudy's book, if we could stick a pin in that discussion, because we have a few more questions to answer, I would like to get through the questions because I think they are very
Pertinent.
pertinent, and
Yeah.
I think persons would need these questions to be answered, maybe pertaining to they figuring out who they are, etc. Yes, Michael.
So now we are, it's a bit after 10 now. No, it's a few minutes to 10 o'clock. So we don't want to keep people beyond, like too late, beyond 11 o'clock. So what we're going to do is the questions that we're going to posit, the questions we're going to have like two people giving like between 30 to 45 seconds responses to the questions, and like two persons or three persons max could comment on how they feel about the questions. Is that fine with you guys, panelists?
Yep.
Beautiful. So let's just dive in like we did when we had the faith discussion. So we're going to shoot out these questions, and we're going to have like 2 or 3 panelists comment on the questions, staying within a 30-second to 45-second span. So go ahead, Sharon. Hit them with it.
That's hard for me.
Okay,
Yeah.
so another question, Ange from our questionnaire, that I don't want to misidentify, so I'm going to refer to the person as that person. That person, the first question they asked is, what advice would you give someone who is struggling to find their place in the TLGBTQIA plus spectrum? So I would ask or more experienced persons on this.
Correct.
I will love to hear from Sharon and
Brandy.
and Rudy.
Brandy.
Because we could have both a male and a female answer to this question as well. So Sharon, if you
Kick us off.
may kick us off on that question. Thank you.
She's still
You're
here,
mute,
right?
Sharon.
Oh,
I just
Okay,
want
good.
to be clear. So the question is, a young person is struggling with their sexual identity, and what advice I would give them?
Yes, what advice would you give someone who is struggling to find their place in the TLGBTQIA plus community?
Well, my first piece of advice would be, don't try to find your place, because I'm not a find a place kind of person. First you find a place within yourself, right? Before you start looking externally, because it's easy if you're not grounded to be led, because like any other community, ours, you can be open to unsafe situations or trying to, what I see Marcus shaking his head. Did you know what I mean? And so before we start, I tell young people, before you start looking for saviors outside or people to guide you, try to find yourself within yourself and even among your peers. If you have a close bunch of friends, family members, that may be a starting point, because even as you start venturing out into this world and the wider world, it is important to be grounded somewhere and to have safe spaces. And I think that's what I would say.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you so much, Sharon. Rudy, your contribution. Stop eating. You're eating. Stop eating.
So I'm going to add a comma and to what Sharon said. Take your time. Take your time. We all want to experience things. We get excited. We want to grow up. But all we more experienced people can tell you is it's not running away. And once you take your time and read, there's so much more information now available than when we were trying to find ourselves. You couldn't even find a book in the library that talked about different sexual experiences and sexuality. But now there's so much information. You can take your time and enjoy the journey. And as you heard tonight, it's a spectrum. So that's all I would add. take your time and enjoy the discovery.
But what about if the person isn't out at all, is now discovering their feelings? And sometimes the books just seem so unreal. It's not a real place, you know? Um, and yes, we didn't have anything in our time, and I know I'm a generation before you, Rudy. Uh, and I remember, you know, I couldn't find anything at home, and I happened to be in New York, and I decided I'm going to walk into a gay bar in the middle of the afternoon and sat down with a drink. And I guess I wanted to find out, I wanted to know what it was like to walk in somewhere. Of course, the first person that spoke to me, I kind of ran out of the bar scared, right? But the point is, you want that realism. You want to be, as Sharon said, in a safe space. And I think that's what the person is also asking about. And yes, they're right. There's risk out there. There are people who are probably going to take advantage of a young person who is not sure, or the young person not being certain of who and what they are, may think that they're one way, and then 5 years down the line, they're something else, and the trauma that has with that kind of changing and so forth. But I think this person is really asking for, you know, where else can I go beside the books and online or movies or whatever?
So fair enough, and I'm glad you clarified that, Faye. Not to be self-promoting, but I do think that that's part of the function that we're serving at PrideTT, actually, is that
Correct.
we are
Body system
creating...
as well could come into play there.
Sorry?
The body system that Faye launched at Generation
Right.
Gap.
Yeah. So
That could
I
come
think
into
all
play.
of those things, we have to, as a community, re-energize things that you all did before that unfortunately weren't maintained, but add to it as well. So that's why we have to have not just gay parties or what we call gay parties. We have to have games nights and meet and greets and, you know, or the entire... So again, it's the whole spectrum that sometimes we are locked out of, that heterosexual people have access to, and that's why they could find themselves sometimes. But we create our own spaces and activities, and I think I would say come on board and come to our events and explore with us, you know. And look how many professional people you have on this call tonight who have the training you can talk to, and they can actually go with you to things and invite you to things that are take it out of the book, that they can walk with you hand in hand, you know.
Amanda, I see your hand up, so I know we are trying to quickly answer these questions. So if you could quickly make your contribution.
Yes, a quick contribution in response to what Faye was saying is very correct in terms of queer youth trying to find themselves. The point I'm making is sexual grooming within the queer community is a real thing. And part of our discussions around sex and sexuality should also investigate how within the queer community there are in fact these violations, and we all know about it. We all know that very young queer people are taken advantage of all the time by older queer people, but no one talks about this. And I wish we could have discussion as well about violations, sexual grooming within the queer community.
I understand that completely as
But I
well.
need to jump in here, and then don't forget, let us be clear, when we talk about grooming, if you come into the community as an older person for the first time, it can also happen to you.
Yes.
Because I didn't enter the community until I was in my 30s, you know, and so it's complicated, and you're right about grooming.
Yes. Thank you so much, everyone, with the contribution to that question. Ange, your second question that you asked, you know, I think you know what I'm talking about. It was answered previously in the discussion. For our panelists who would just like want to know what the question was. The second question that was asked was, what are your thoughts of having a definite label? Is it important, or is the umbrella term queer acceptable? the question, I believe, was answered in our previous discussion just now,
True.
because that was one of the high points of it. So that question had been answered. I would like to hear from our younger folk on the panel. The question is it okay for someone's label to change from day to day? So, say we only have two young folk on the panel. Mia and
Let me
Epiphany,
be on the
you
panel
both,
too.
no,
Okay.
you both could contribute to this.
Okay, so let me give from my experience,
Short and
right?
sweet,
Because
eh?
that's all basically I could give because I don't have the extensive knowledge Brandy, Sharon, Faye, Rudy, or Marcus would have on a situation because they have lived and been through more shit than I have. So like I said, I should have said this before, but I first thought that I was bisexual, right? Because for me, and this is one of the things I find we should have in Trinidad and Tobago, is like classes where kids learn about sex and sexuality, right? Because that cycle will just continue where people just be living in confusion. You know what I mean, right? And you all know how I feel about it because I've been vocal about it in all the meetings we've had.
Yes.
Yes.
Anyway, so when I was still trying to figure out what I was, tell the minister he wanted about it. I love Rudy. Anyway, like for me personally, I was unaware of what bisexuality was, right? Until I actually did research for myself and looked at stories that people, and then I realized, like, wow, maybe I could be this. Like, you know what I'm saying? And then fast forward, right, to when I'm like 14, that's when I realized that, wow, no, I am not this. I am like the whole entire umbrella. You know what I'm saying? So it's something that I deal with because it's something, because like for me, I've been open with you all about this too in meeting. Like with gender, I have always had a problem with
With
my
people,
gender identity,
true.
right? In terms of fluctuation. And Shahan knows what I'm speaking about because we've had conversations like that, right? Because we always joke around in meetings, and most of the members will tell you that we just call ourselves butches. Like we just say all kind of things, right? And like, yeah, so you will fluctuate. And I think a lot of people have to understand that nothing is wrong with that. Because like I said, everything is a spectrum. It's a continuum. You are never not going to be one thing in your life, right? Like it's something, if it is you don't have a definite label for yourself, that is fine. Once you're comfortable and you are emotionally and mentally secure with how you feel, and you are able to recognize how you feel about people and how you feel about yourself, that's all that matters, right? Because I can come up
True.
here and say I am pansexual and I'm androgynous, like you all know, because that's where I've come to that conclusion. No, it's been a journey for me because I literally have been through all the terms. Like I thought I was non-binary. I thought I was this. I thought I was that. I thought I was this. I thought I was straight. I thought I was this. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like life is a journey, and you all know that. So it's
Yeah, it
something
does.
that is gonna fluctuate regardless, and especially for people who have like difficult lives or have been through trauma and things. You have to take like a step back and deal with that, and then like find yourself and stuff like that. So it's gonna be a journey. You're going to fluctuate. It's not something that you're gonna be like, if one day you decide like, okay, I'm gay, and then like 5 years later you realize you're not like 100% or like you're along the spectrum. That is great too. Because like I will say again, it is a spectrum. Nothing is stagnant, people. It's a continuum. And to allow yourself to fluctuate, just allow yourself to be human, right?
Thank you. Yes,
Allow
yes.
yourself
Yeah.
to go through the emotions, right? Because I'm going to tell the Prime Minister Rudy, like they need these types of conversations in school, right? They need to. I'm fed up. You all know how I feel about it too. I will get mad because
Don't.
like kids, they need to have like some sort of like information they could do, because I don't want to have more generations of kids being traumatized, or people telling little boys you can't wear pink and da 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 and stuff. I think someone of me take. Are you
Well,
seeing Rudy's comments? I'm dead. Like, for me, I personally, I reached the point where I have to like, because I get emotionally attached to people a lot, I realized. And I realized like I have to step back from people's lives sometimes, because I'm not some of these kids' parents. But it's like for me, whenever I see children that are being traumatized on a regular basis, it affects me.
Time frame, guys.
Because, huh?
your
Time
time
frame.
frame.
Oh, I gone.
Love you.
Epiphany, your quick 2 cents on this, please.
Please. Quick.
Um,
Emphasis on
yes,
quick.
yes,
Oh
I will
God,
be
sorry,
quick.
Piff.
It's all right. It's all right. I'll be quick. To blatantly answer the question, yes or no, I am telling you yes. Of course, you can fluctuate. It is okay if somebody tells you otherwise. Hold their ass and
Amen.
everything else.
Oh God, I can't
Because
Amen.
I could say that, and anybody on the live who knows me know that this is a PG version of how I speak. Okay. Right, right. And basically, to sum up really quickly, I understand why the question is said and where, and I can identify with it, because I'm pretty sure Mia, especially Shahan, you would know if someone wants to ask me. Also, well, first of all, I am always assumed I'm a lesbian because I play sports and I don't like tight jeans, and I literally try my utmost best to hide my boobs because it hurts my back. So everybody's like, "Oh, so you're a lesbian?" First of all, whatever you want to say, that's your business. Second of all, I'm always asked, "Are you a guy?" No, I'm not a guy. I'm a female with deep voice. I have boobs. I have a really large ass. Trust me, I'm a girl. And if someone wants to ask me, "What do you identify it?" I would say that I definitely love me some women,
Amen.
110%. However,
Amen on the
it would
chat.
take an extraordinary guy for me to even look
God
at you.
and created them kind of men, so.
Yeah, you need to be extraordinary for me to even look at you. So
Shahan, you did not just say that.
saying those things, at first you would say, "Oh, well, she's definitely a lesbian because she likes girls so much." And then some people might say, "So are you bisexual?" I honestly say, God, only because of Micah's definitions in the first session, I could say I'm definitely gender fluid for sure. The other two, I'm not too sure about, but I know I love me some
And that's
lady.
fine. And
I
that's
love me.
fine.
Right. And that's
Yeah, we
what
need
I'm
to destroy the
saying.
pressure for falling into
Exactly.
labels.
Yes.
Yeah.
Guess what? You know what you all young people need to understand? The
We
same
young
way
people.
how yes, crap, I'm young too. Yes.
Very well.
Yeah, you are.
You all need to understand the same way how if somebody was to ask you what's your favorite subject, you could say, "Well, I like maths, but I'm really good at English and I'm a boss at science." It's the same thing. You could like girls, but you could have a serious deep connection with fellas, or you could find,
Exactly.
because I personally, the first time I see Brandy, I need to point you out, girlfriend. I thought you were so beautiful. My own girlfriend saw you and she was like, "Oh my God, who is this person?" And I was like, wow. Wow.
Wow. I was like, okay.
And
I
I'm
have
like,
a little crush on
people,
Brandy.
people,
We
I am
all
have on
do. Let's not
headset,
even count.
okay? We have on headset and
Mia, we have
it is
one
just
headset
on
here.
we.
sorry,
Oh, I'm
yes.
so
So
sorry. I'm
no,
so
like
sorry, guys.
at the end of the day, you are, as Sharon said, you are to stay true to yourself.
Yeah.
If you feel
Exactly.
Whichever version of yourself.
uncomfortable,
Yeah.
specifying for anybody,
1 minute, Sharon.
you are entitled to say, "Mind your damn business." If you feel
That too, if you
comfortable, you
want.
do you. But yes, to answer the question, you can fluctuate. It's okay. I fluctuating with you.
Yes.
Okay.
Sharon.
But in all the fluctuations, because I think the person had talked about changing labels every day. And and that's the thing with us when we're younger, because I wouldn't tell you how many lovers I had when I was all your age, is that we tend to be focused on self, right? But don't forget, when we're talking about labels and sexual interaction, we're interacting with other people, you know. And while we might be clear in our shifting labels, don't forget, we also have to take into consideration those people we're engaging with and bonds that are formed. And I say this, and everything I will tell you all is in hindsight, huh? Because, you know, as I was sleeping through my way and having a good time, and everybody got a 6-month stint, and they, you know, they would say there for the, you know, it was all
Long
about
run.
me and me, you know, dealing with all my pain and my trauma through punishing other people. You know, yes, let them fall in love with you and you dump them.
Oh no.
Yes.
Oh no,
But the
Sharon.
real thing is, yeah, when you're doing it, it's like, cool, it's all about me, it's my shit.
Yeah.
My pussy is the sweetest pussy and the power of the pussy and the whole gamut.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you know, how do we feel? And again, you will feel differently as the years pass by, and to realize that we're here to do the least amount of damage, even in our sexual discovery and exploration and all that great stuff.
Yeah.
Let us also realize that there are other people involved that all they may want to do is love you, you know? And that's what I will just jump in and say.
It's hard. It's real hard.
If I may give my quick 2 cents on that too as well,
Of course, Shahan.
I know I understand your question, and I will agree with the answer. Yes, it's okay to fluctuate, because when I had originally came out, I did not come out as lesbian. I came out as bisexual. Right? And some of my close friends who I came out to will know that I came out as bisexual, and then after a while I realized that I did not have any sort of attraction toward men, nothing whatsoever, right? And then I realized, okay, well, and I have very, very, very strong attractions towards females, both physically and sexually as well, right? However, there was some night I was just bored, and I was like, I wonder what gender fluid is. I just Googled it, and I was like, okay, so I now understand where I lie and what I am, because I too was young and didn't have friends aligned with the community. And I realized that I am gender fluid, but with the definition that I found at that point in time, I would say that I am gender fluid, but to more of the masculine side of it.
Of the spectrum,
Yes, because I honestly, I don't like dresses. I don't like to dress feminine, nothing like that. The rare occasions I do have to and don't have a choice, then fine by me, right? But yes, it's okay to change labels and fluctuate from day to day. And Rudy agrees with you in the comments as well. If you take a look at the comments, if you still
I love Rudy, I'm telling you.
Right? So moving on.
Please.
Another question. I think this is questions that a very important question, in fact, from Leah. She asked, what are your thoughts of the concept of virginity, which may be damaging to members of the TLGBTQIA plus community, as some sex relations don't necessarily meet the criteria for traditional loss of your virginity, and the effects it may have on sexual assault victims. So I would like.
I'm not understanding. Can you read? I'm not understanding what the question is asking.
The question the first, okay, so I'll try to break it up in parts for you guys. So the first question is, what are your thoughts on the concept of virginity in terms of the community?
Time restraint, guys. 30 to 45 seconds.
But if it's fine, just because it's my area, I don't mind responding. It's a quick 2 minutes.
2 minutes, we.
Yeah, Marcus needs to talk. He needs to explain.
2 minutes.
Right. So virginity is also a social construct that has respectability and morality attached to it. Right. It is something that people put a value on. Right. Because it is not a physical thing, as we have the misconception of the hymen and all of that. Women lose their hymens for multiple reasons, not just sex, right? It's really a social construct around valuing your first time, right? Yep. What I've done in the past with sexual assault victims is that I have reminded them that their first time, right, their first true sexual experience is when they have given the consent. Rape is not your first time. Rape is an assault. Rape is sexual abuse.
If I may jump in there, Marcus, please. So without giving away anybody's business, I know persons who have been sexually assaulted in terms of not being raped and assaulted in terms of they were just sexually assaulted and wasn't being raped, right? So in terms of the rape and in terms of, let's just say, physicality where the penis wasn't involved.
Right, and I completely understand it. So rape meaning the penis entering either the vagina or the anus, I completely respect that. So I'll use the word assault. Any kind of assault does not account for your consensual first time experience. Your first time is when you genuinely engage, meet your desires, your expectations at a particular level. You want to be with that person. Sexual assault is not your first time. Right? Sexual assault is just what it is. It is an assault, right? In a construct of what it means to be connected sexually with someone requires consent, desires, and all of these other elements to be in play. So yeah, that's yeah.
I also think it's important when we talk about virginity that it's, as Marcus said, a matter of consent. But I lost my virginity at 15 years old. And I had a boyfriend who said, if you really loved me and if you want me to be your boyfriend, you'd have sex with me.
Manipulation.
Right. And so I had sex. And that was before all of this fancy language. At 15 years old, back in the day, you just did what you were supposed to do. And as a result, I got pregnant, had an abortion, had all that good stuff happen to me as a teen. And never saw myself as a victim one, but realized that I was deeply traumatized by those experiences that happened for years after, and not being able to begin to enjoy sex until my 20s and really, really feel like a sexual being till my 40s. And so virginity, I always tell people, be really careful, and that's what I taught my son. It is when you are ready. I don't tell young people, my nieces, I don't tell them an age. I tell them what it means to be ready. To be ready is when you want to, when you feel comfortable enough, when you don't feel manipulated. And we didn't have that language back in the day. We got Growing Up and Liking It. If anybody remembers that book, that was my introduction to. You got a little booklet called Growing Up and Liking It about periods and everything. My mother never had a conversation with me. And so that's how I think about virginity and the loss of virginity. And there is no age. If you want to keep it till your 30s, it's yours. If you want to lose it. I tell people though, I'll give a caveat for younger females. Be very clear that the earlier that you start engaging in penetrative sex, the more likely you are to be susceptible to things like cervical cancer, medical stuff, but it's really about when you're emotionally as well as physically ready.
Ms. Martin, you mentioned something about age, and I'd like to pose this question to the entire panel. How do you guys feel about the age of consent?
What's the age of consent? Just remind me.
The age of
Isn't
consent
it
right
18?
now, no, the age of consent is 16, I believe.
16? Okay, and how do you guys
Change
feel
it, wait,
about
I
persons
No,
changed,
no,
interacting
it's
in
changed.
sex?
It's
No,
18.
change
It
it.
just a
changed to
point of
18.
information.
Okay, okay,
It's 18, right?
yeah.
Yeah, a
As
point of
matter.
Right.
information. The age of consent is 18. It was harmonized with the legal age for marriage, which is also 18. However,
Good.
there is a caveat that allows for marriage of 16-year-olds with the consent of their parents. But
Right.
concerning legal age of consent to sex, that is 18 years old.
Okay.
And
Thank you
how
so
does the
much.
panel and like other persons, you can post your comment, I mean your response in the comments and stuff, feel about persons engaging in sexual activity before the age of consent being 18?
Faye has her hand up.
Please, Faye.
Mm-hmm. Let's say answer.
Remember, we stay in between 20 seconds now because time flying.
I was going back to the other question, but
Okay, sure. Do that, Faye.
I'll tie it all up together.
Okay.
Whether or not the age of consent is 16, 18, whatever the case it is, the fact of the matter is, in our country, we have youngsters that are engaging in sex from 11. Our statistics say that. We need sexual education in schools. We need it, and not just in schools. I think we need to have parents
In public forums.
that conversation. But going back to the other question too, we're talking about, you said virginity, but then we have to look at, and we looked at this back in the 80s when AIDS first came here, and we're trying to put out education to try to keep people safe. Is we defining what is really and truly sex? So some people think of sex as only penetration. But I remember when Raymond Chukan used to let us have the space bar on a Saturday evening from 3 till 6. And the gay men would look at the lesbians or look at the women and say, but all they don't have sex because there's no penetration in their mind. And of course, they had to be educated. And then I saw a movie and there was a line in it that said, if I come and there's somebody else in the room, I had sex. So it depends on how you define sex and what is virginity. I mean, if you're talking about a broken hymen, if you fall badly, it could break.
If you ride a horse.
Right? So,
my friend also ride a horse and hymen. What's up,
I mean, we had jokes about, somebody tongue gets in your ear, you're not a virgin anymore, that kind of stupid things. But it all depends on what this person means, right? And how we define sex.
Yeah. Marcus, if it's
Could I just say something on the age of consent?
I wanted to ask you a question as well, but go ahead.
Yeah, just quickly. The age of consent and those age markers are just legislative preventative barriers to kind of protect vulnerable persons who can't make decisions, to think of an idea around maybe they might be able to make particular type of decisions after a certain age. It's just really an attempt to try to protect. I think really what is fundamental about something like this is that although the age of consent to have sex and marriage may increase, it does not mean that predatory culture has been shifted, right? So we want to protect children, we want to protect young queer people from being victims of, early sexual experiences, assault, unwanted, STIs, STDs, pregnancies, all of these things. But really and truly, those are just barriers to prevent predatory, and in my case, a lot of it is predatory masculinity, right? Because I work in the women's movement, men prey on young, vulnerable persons in minority situations, sex workers, migrants, that kind of thing, right? So we really have to question the culture of predatory that exists, right? Not so much the age. The age is to tell us that, hey, we need to protect somebody out there, right? But we need to have conversations with, older folks and folks who think that they have rights over persons. The idea of child marriage isn't so much the age, right? Yes, the age plays a huge of predatory cultural biology and all of that. But it's the culture around where one person feels that they have power over, are entitled to women's bodies, right? That kind of predatory culture needs to be part of the conversation as we use age of consent to move to that. So so much age, right? That's the age phase and
Yeah.
Yes, Marcus.
Marcus, a question I wanted to ask you, follow-up question with the question that was just posed. Like being in your line of work and such, right? And any one of the other panelists could chime in at this. Keep it in mind the time constraints we gave you guys. What advice like would you give someone who was assaulted, right? Sexually assaulted, but you know they are still kind of afraid of they are still kind of afraid to not necessarily be with somebody in that way. They are afraid of that as well, but they are still afraid generally in terms of anything that may be sexual, whether it's um in terms of with a penis or a strap or
Right.
oral or those kinds of things. Like what advice would you give someone that has gone through that?
And I think this is, I mean, this is actually, this is what I did for my first PrideTT workshop 2 years ago, was on queer experiences of child sexual abuse. Now, first, I mean, in a nutshell, I would have to say, one, trauma is real. Trauma manifests in multiple ways. Phobias, fears of intimacy, communication, your own ability to have hope, right? Trauma does these things to you. It complicates your emotions. It heightens some, it weakens some, right? That is the reality of trauma, right? What I would like a person who may have been a survivor, who's a survivor of some sort of sexual trauma, is to consider seeking information, because only through counseling and in-depth intervention they could really figure out what they're feeling, how is it impacting on their lives, and how they could move forward. Like, I can't give you a quick fix in a platform like this. It has to be if you feel comfortable to reach out. And I have to put a little bit of the responsibilities on people generally, and saying that you have to create trauma-informed environments where people could feel safe to say, hey,
That's true.
I want to talk about this. Okay, I might be the best person, but I have this information for you. This is a hotline. This is a contact. I think once trauma survivors understand that one, people are listening, and they have somewhere to go, and they have people who are willing to understand their intersectional issues, including sexuality. Because one of the biggest fears of trauma cases is the fact that their sexuality, they feel as though their sexuality will become more of the conversation than the abuse itself. Especially with the young gay men I work with who have been sexually abused as children. They say, Marcus, I'm afraid to go and get help because people might want to question more about my sexuality versus the trauma as a child. Why must a 5-year-old, a boy who was abused at 5 years old, will have to struggle with his sexuality when he was when he's an abuse survivor? You know what I mean? Where's the priorities as a society? So I would tell someone to engage in information, ask questions, and to tell the people around that person to listen and provide, because only a survivor will know when they're ready to make any kind of step forward, right? All we can do as bystanders is to ensure that there's an ear, there's a hand to hold, and that there's information to share for further intervention. And that's the best we can do.
Thank you so much for
Well
answering
said.
that.
Come on, Marcus.
So I'm honestly going to kill two birds with one stone right now, because this question was redundant. And
We're not killing on this platform, love. But go ahead.
my bad, my bad, my bad.
Love
But
it, Miss Motley.
oh God. But and I think this the answer to this question would be short and sweet as well, very short and very sweet, because we have we have um we have addressed this on numerous occasions in our lives in terms of PrideTTs, not just ones that we co-host with PrideTT, but others as well. And the question is, in terms of sex ed in school, like making it mandatory. The question is basically what are we doing as a community to push for mandatory sex education? And I would love Brandy to answer this question, because I know um the trans community have been put very much at the back burner, and that is why in terms of the acronym this year, we're putting the T before everybody else, because everybody else we always give on priority, and the trans people, they are not given priorities. I would love to hear what Brandy, what's your contribution to that question?
Okay, first I must say, very, 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 very interesting conversation. And I must say, I like to see young people engage in this. But I could remember, because I've been doing a lot of work with, on different projects with persons who were trans, and we had a questionnaire at one time, and I had to get 5 trans people to answer 5 different questions in different settings. And one of the things we talked about was education and school. And prior to the fact that they were bullied and, they had to drop out of school and all of that, I remember most of them out of I only was supposed to get 5 people, but when people here I was doing interviews and paying $100 for the time, I must be get about 15 interviews. And I took the 15 interviews and paid them the money because I wanted to know what it was. I wanted to know where they came from. And a lot of persons, young people, most of the time were violated, sexually assaulted, raped. Young trans people we have, who identify to be trans. When I hear their stories, it's the stories that I would say, this is a clear case for you to be, for me to see about getting you out of this country, getting you out of these places for migration, for situations. Because we got a lot of, I had one person came and tell me, Andy, where I live is in Laventille, she identified to be trans, and her older brother was having intercourse with her all night, every time. Young, from like 5, she could remember, because she was always very feminine. And this person was having sex with her. And the boy was a big boy, because he was like 15 or 16 years old, and she was just 5 years old. And then on top of that, because what really made me question it also to get deeper, because she was only 18 years old, and she was already full blown. So I said to her, I said, Miss Lady, you didn't born with this. You didn't come here, but give me some information so that I could understand what went on with you. And she started to explain to me, and it is happening to me since I was 5 years old. And if I did not have sex with my older brother, he would make the boys in the group, because the person was living somewhere between past the street and the next street in Laventille, up some road and some place, and they would beat her up. They would beat her up, like really physically beat her up. So if she didn't want to tomorrow, she had to give it up tonight. And that went on for a period of time. And then he was having intercourse with other persons, and then she didn't know what was HIV and got infected, and And I heard these stories, and I feel this because hearing this tonight, I know these are real stories that persons who identify from different species, and these are things people will not talk about. It wasn't for the $100 she came for. She came to tell me. She said, "I want the $100 still enough." But had to get this off my chest. I need to tell you exactly what happened to me. I need to tell you why I doesn't go to church. I want to tell you why I don't like to go to public spaces. I want you to explain and to understand this, because I don't know if you know anything about rape. I don't know if you know anything, you know. I said, Miss Lady, I wasn't sheltered, but I was a woman, used to hide and, you know, do my thing. I never had interactions with my cousins and stuff like that, because I didn't like them, you know. I wanted to dress up, and I find them was just bothering me. You know, when they come home and you tell me, what the fuck all they come here for? What all they come for? Because you know, I can't dress up, I can't do nothing, but them go tell. So them always thought, even I never liked them, but I did not, I wanted my space and my time. And a lot of people does not know children are born this way. You are born this way. And when you're born this way, you want that moment to just dress up, get tired, and then go back to your old self again. You just want that 5 minutes of fame to walk in them long dress and tall shoes, and you feel good about yourself, and then you can go back again to your normal life. And understanding, I help a lot of my friends to migrate. I did help them when I heard these stories. I sell barbecue for them. I give them printed tickets, and I just cook the food and, you know, do this stuff to get them out of here, because they've been through a lot from childhood to reach in their 20s and 30s. And it's things that they won't talk about. You know, they won't say anything. And they don't talk about this in spaces. And I respect the fact that they didn't want to share, because now it makes me want to reach out to young people even more, because I know where they're coming from. I know the spaces they have been in. I may not be, you know, one to say that I was abused or I was raped. I don't care one ass. I know I want to do what I want to do. I just do what I want to do. I was a woman since I born. So I didn't know that. That's one thing I didn't know. But a lot of people may not have that, you know, strength to identify with this. And we have to, I'm really glad to be a part here in, you know, on a panel like this and hearing stories. And it made me reflect to most of my friends, what were their challenges and how sexuality and, you know, sexual orientation played a part of, you know, an impact on their life and gender identity. All these things played that, you know, give them such challenges to be their authentic selves and where they're coming from.
And
So it was
Brandy,
really nice to share.
And Brandy, what I wanted to say just now, Marcus, that for those women, those people that suffered abuse or that are suffering abuse, labels don't matter.
No.
They don't exist in their world. We can't come to them with labels. What are you? You know what I'm saying? And this goes back to the start of the conversation. You know?
Yeah, and I just wanted to tie in, like, when you hear the experiences of you know, the people that Brandy work with, and even the experience of Sharon at 15 years old, making a relationship, making it relatable to sex ed, it tells us that sex ed is beyond just how to use a condom.
Yeah.
Beyond just how
Exactly.
the body works. It is about empowering people to know their rights, to know their value, so that it does not continue, so that women don't think that their bodies are used, are objects of sexual pleasure only. And at 15 years old, that you don't have to negotiate sex to be with someone. You understand? You don't have to negotiate being a young queer man now coming out into the community to be part of the system. You know, so sex ed goes beyond just about biology and beyond about the pleasure of sex, which is what, you know, a lot of religious groups are failing to understand. But it's about empowering people to understand that they have a value, that they have a particular place, and they have a right, and it gives young people agency to talk about what is happening to them, right?
Yes.
And the fear to acknowledge health and family life education as a safe space in the school system is a failure to respect the vulnerabilities of young people.
Yes. I agree.
And young people on the panel, it is your responsibility as our next generation who will be filling a lot of these spots in across sectors to ensure that takes place. Because you all now have the language, you all have the power, you all have the information to make those changes.
Yeah.
Really quickly, I know we are time constraining everyone, but quickly, because we have spoken about this in our management meetings, in different talks and stuff over the month thus far about this. Quickly give them an idea of like what PrideTT has in mind or has in store for how we are going to address this.
Wow. So the first thing that is important for this period is that all of you all need to fill out and to share our needs assessment survey. We are close to over 200 assessments thus far, which from my knowledge is one of the largest community assessments that has been done in a while. But we need even more information because, as you can tell from the call tonight alone, each of us has all these different lived experiences, but we need to be able to extrapolate data and numbers and information, because that needs assessment is going to fuel the empowerment manifesto. That empowerment manifesto, as the name suggests, is going to be a compilation of the needs and immediate fixes that are required by not just LGBTQI people, but all marginalized groups in Trinidad and Tobago. We are hoping to submit that to all the political parties before the election. They may not add those things to their campaign or their manifestos, but from there now, PrideTT will be in a position to take all of the learnings, because it is over 22 of these type of sessions we would have hosted in this month. We're going to take all of the learnings from these sessions. We are going to correlate it with the assessment survey, other feedback, the partners that we have. And we are going to develop a series of programming that will continue post Pride on July 26th and run all the way into next year's Pride. And we are going to mobilize our community like we've never mobilized before and bring resources to bear to really find solutions from the community that will stop some of these things once and for all, or at least move the needle forward. I just want to add that one of those interventions is actually going to start in Tobago, because a lot of times all of the issues we deal with in Trinidad, the mainland, as people like to call us, are exacerbated in our sister island. You could well imagine what happens over there. And we are going to Tobago. The PrideTT is going to Tobago for Emancipation Weekend, and we're using the impetus of emancipation and all the intersectionality that brings to host a series of activities to start even in Tobago. So Shahan, you know, it's a lot more, as you know, so I'll just leave that as a teaser. And even on the live on Facebook, I've been inviting people to write us and register with us, because there's so much work to be done. But as Sharon said, we now have the resources and the technology to get that work done and get in the face of our policymakers in an even greater way and build on the work that has been done before.
Okay, I just want to say a call to action. Yes, we're talking about political stuff, right? Let me tell you all something. My master's was in industrial and labor relations, nothing to do with sex and sexuality. But because of my experiences as a young person, I took classes separate and apart on sex and sexuality and decided that at every party that my sister went to, I would show up in effect and talk about sex and sexuality. How embarrassing is that? Then every school that my child attended, I would be on the PTA and offer to hold sex and sexuality classes for parents to talk to their children, right? And then primary schools, some Catholic primary schools would invite me to come on the down low to talk to their fifth standard children. if incidents happened among their students, I would get invited to come and talk about sex. I was not no expert. That was not my core competency or degree. But because I had a passion for it, I decided that because of what happened to me, I didn't want happening to other people. And so each of you, if you are so moved, you know, you could get your skill set and begin to offer your services, because in every community, you could form your little community group, communities have stuff, and begin to say, you know what, we need to talk about this. And then also have your resources. So if people come to you and say, well, they were traumatized, be able to refer them to Marcus, be able to refer them to so-and-so, you know, but this doesn't have to be this big political thing. Also, we as individuals have a responsibility to change the wrongs we see happening in our communities. And you all are all educated. That's what you're going to UE for. Not only to get a big job, but when you get a big job, to whom much is given, much is expected. And you have to have a social responsibility and figure out how you're going to give back. And I'll get off my soapbox.
No, Sharon, I'm glad you made that point, because many of us on these calls or in the sessions that we have are privileged in different ways, whether it's through academia, socioeconomic background, experiences, family, whatever, what have you. And we need to get into the communities. I've been saying elsewhere that placards, protests, parades, and parties have a place, but we need proactive programming in communities. And Brandy, you could bear me out on this. That's why we launched the fund, the Sasha Fierce Memorial Fund, because we need to get in there. We need to stand with our people. And sometimes, and I think, Sharon, we said this elsewhere too, maybe it was on the activism call, some of us need to shut up sometimes and let the other people speak. And that's what I'll do now.
Thank you guys for that.
I love him,
that contribution as well. We have just a few more questions to get through, right? So the person gave their name as Super Confused Girl. So the question she asked, because I'm blowing through, because we have in our talks, we have answered a lot of their questions as well. So to save time, I'll just blow through the ones that weren't answered, right? She asked, can someone be bisexual and demisexual?
Yes.
For Sharon,
That again, sorry.
can someone be bisexual and demisexual?
Yes.
Okay, Micah, can you pull up that definition?
Then I have to say what demisexual is. I can't
Hi,
remember.
Mama.
We did this in our meeting. Y'all should feel ashamed. I came out with
it's not only PrideUWI persons. Behave. It's not only PrideUWI people filling out this. Behave.
All right, I forgot.
Micah, the definition of demisexual, please.
I wasn't talking about the person sending the question, Shahan. I was talking about your work.
Micah.
Okay. So, you guys wanted the definition of a demisexual person, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So, a demisexual person is one who generally not experience sexual action unless they have formed strong emotional bond with a person. It doesn't have to be romantic, it's just an emotional bond.
Start over, Micah. You were unclear at the beginning of
You were
it.
breaking up.
So, a demisexual person refers to someone who does not usually experience sexual attraction unless they have formed an emotional bond with the person.
In that case, and of course, somebody could be bisexual and demisexual as long as you form that deep connection with either with whichever two you are attracted to. Then and only then will you engage in the sexual aspect of your relationship. That's a definitely glue-in. That could happen. That combination could happen with anybody on this the TLGBQIA spectrum. Like, those two, that could go in hand with anybody.
And you know, I've met women who fall in love with other women but don't define as lesbian because they only love that woman. You know, they only have feelings for that woman. And if you ask them, if you broke up with this woman, would you go with another woman? They will say no.
Say no.
They will
Yeah,
go back to being
exactly.
heterosexual. It's just that they fell in
Exactly.
love with a particular person.
Particular, yes.
Not
Yes.
me, I love all
I-
women.
No, I
I
like
could
that.
relate that.
Well,
I
I
could
hope
kind of vibe slightly with,
go ahead.
but I'm changing devices. My phone was overheating, so as soon as I get on through my phone, I'll say what I have to say.
Okay. So when we move on and when Michael returns, he'll answer that question. This question, I think, if you Google it, you will get the information. But Stefan asked, "What is the known queer history in Trinidad and Tobago?" So I pose this question
Say
to
that
our
again.
more experienced.
Say that
What is the known queer history in Trinidad and Tobago?
Too long to answer.
Hey, split up, Faye.
But I know Faye can handle that.
Oh, Jason Jones. You would have been able to provide.
I remember my group was the first group that ever wrote in on the white paper for the Equal Opportunities Act. And that was way back. I remember being on the radio and talking about what it is to be homosexual. Way back. I mean, when Pride started in the early 90s. Yeah, there's a lot of history.
I think it's safe to say. Sorry to cut you across, space. I think it's safe to say it's a very, very, very long history, and all the information will be on the internet if they Google it.
That we need to start recording our history through the stories of our LGBT persons and put it out there for any and everybody to see. I think that's what the person was trying to get to, and yes, we're fully aware of it.
Shahan, let me just give you one piece of queer history. You see that headband Micah has on with the national colors? The flag? Our flag was designed by Carlisle Chang, who was a gay man. So take that in all your platform for gay history.
What?
I love how Rudy answered that. Micah, your quick 2 cents.
Oh no, you guys were mentioning something about bisexuality and being demisexual.
Yes, the person asked if can someone be bisexual and demisexual.
Well, I can't comment on that because I can't speak from experience. But what I can say is, as a person, it's due to past experiences, it's difficult for me to get. I just see myself as a sexual being, and I seldom really have emotional connections with person. Like so much so that I find it really odd to kiss a person. If I kiss a person, it's because it's like an honor for them. But I would easily have sex with anyone. Like as long as it's safe sex, I would prefer to have sex than to really kiss somebody, because I think that kissing someone is too intimate. And I don't find much people who share that sentiment, but I stand firm in my belief that for me, kissing someone is really intimate, and it's easier for me to have sex with someone than to kiss them. If anyone shares that sentiment, you all pop up so I wouldn't feel like I'm by myself, please.
Rudy agrees with you.
Yeah, it tough out there. You see? Thanks. It's tough out there. You understand? And I would have sex. I've had sex with people that I've met like 15 minutes, like in 10 minutes. I've done that, but it's and I don't. And people say, how then do you initiate sex without kissing someone? Do you just press a button? But no, you understand? It happens though, and I'm speaking. It's happened multiple times, but I just don't really feel comfortable kissing people. You understand? Unless it is, if it is you got a kiss from me, dog, it real serious. You understand?
Yeah.
I'm done with you, Rudy.
Amrit always Amrit agrees with you as well, Micah, in the comments if you look at it. I don't want to mispronounce this person's name, but I think it's Kiwana. If I mispronounce your name, my dear, I'm so sorry. But Brandy, this question is directly for you. The question
Right,
is,
yeah, go ahead.
The question is, what can be done by the rest of the community to empower our transgender family?
I would say, firstly, a lot have been done, but trans women come up from such a broken space. It would seem as though not enough is being done.
Right.
I think what we need to get trans women to understand is they carry the baggage around and they don't let go of this baggage. A lot of women, trans women, carry these heavy baggage all the time and they blame, they look for, they're carrying this baggage and blaming everyone else. And one of the things they need to do is we need to recondition, we need professional health care for trans women, not just a psychologist, but specialists for persons who directly works with trans women and understand the need for trans women. Faye, I'm seeing your hand, Faye.
And just to add one more thing, for young people who are engaging and understanding trans women, not just as trans women as a particular type of group, but if we critically look at why we this year, why we're putting the T in front, right? It is a whole systematic reason behind why the T is at the forefront. Trans women are pushing against the grain of sexuality, gender, everything that the patriarchy wants to reinforce. Trans women are pushing against by living their authentic self, right?
Yes.
Trans women, because of their expression identity, they lack respectability in places where you are supposed to be given the most humane treatment. Healthcare, mental care, social protection like police, right? Education, jobs, the labor market. This is why the Trans Coalition came together and decided that they wanted to put trans women in the front of the T because of the multiple layers of vulnerabilities that they are facing, not because they are worth more or that they are worth less. They're asking a group of people who understand oppression to understand this need, and let us start by those who have complicated lives at the forefront of the decision making, right? Because what happened historically, we would make decisions based on those who had the voice, which was privileged, gay, cisgendered males, right? So we built the projects based on their needs, right? So what we're asking for is to critically think about why the T is in front for this Pride.
Hey, Brandy noted that you had your hand up.
Yeah, I mean, something as simple as us all reaching out to the next trans person that we see, strike up a conversation, make them feel included, because most of the time we tend to isolate them. Yes, we might feel uncomfortable in ourselves with who they are. We may think that we don't share anything in common. The simplest thing right now to do is strike up a conversation. Treat them as they are, persons.
And let us not forget our trans men.
Yeah.
Which like, if you, like, how many trans men do we know?
And that's an entire community that has actually always been left out of conversation, even within the trans community, because I see a lot of trans men and their stories are so different and their challenges are so much more than what we really seem to, we look at them and there's so much more going on with them. And I really
born with a vagina.
That's it.
Born with a vagina and you really am a man.
Yeah,
so
so
what that means.
They have a lot more to deal with, than regular persons. And this is what, there's not enough for the trans community, and we should be, I'm really asking for a lot more, professional support, especially in healthcare and not just health, but the entire component that surrounds health, so that we can, really get a better, clearer understanding of how we can best facilitate the community.
And for the record, why you're wondering why Brandy missing? Hey, she not interfering me or anything, right? She's talking on free goes for the record, right?
Brandy
Seeing me
enjoying
rock back here on this chair and wondering where Brandy voice coming from, right?
Epiphany, I see you had your hand up.
Yes. It actually it stems from the trans men, as you all say, because recently, as in 2 to 3 weeks ago, I was approached by a transitioning young man. He wants to be called a young man from now, even though he's not complete with his transition. And to me, I as everyone has been saying, a lot of people have a negative connotation towards them, and they feel like it's such a disgrace to be seen talking to them. But I had no problem speaking to him, sorry. And he approached me and he asked me, because I can't remember where I was going, but I was dressed very casual. And the first question is that he said to me, he said he doesn't mean to be disrespectful, but he asked me if I have boobs. And I'm like, yes, I do. I just wear very big tops. And he genuinely, and I honestly was confused at first, only for him to ask me, besides for surgically, like if it is I know about the wrapping technique or what sports bras will be more suitable to give a more flat-chested appearance, because the young man is very slim, whereas I am thick. So it will be easier for me to hide that
As
versus a
opposed,
slim person. Right. If I wear big clothes, you wouldn't see it. And I felt very touched that out of all the people you could see literally in the middle of the road, I came out my car and was crossing the road, and this person just crossed the road and had to talk to me, and I'm like, that was
we
really
live for
sweet.
those moments.
It really was.
Did you get his number?
No, I did not, because
I was not gonna ask that.
Believe it or not, this young man is not a Trinidadian and has only been in the country for 4 days.
No,
Is
self
that
take the
immigrant?
number, girl.
Yeah, because sometimes
he sounds Arabic. I'm not too sure. According to him, he told me that he came back in with the family recently with the COVID thing, but they were on quarantine for a while, so they now back to the public. So there's no social media. And to be very honest, looking at him, I would say that I know he has a journey ahead of him, but he looks beautiful. He looks beautiful. And I did tell him, by the way, about PrideTT and all of us. So, darling, love, I would not call your name because I know he said he's in the process of having his name changed. So if you happen to be on this live, let you know that we are out here. We see you. We know you.
We love you.
We
Micah loves
support
you.
I for sure think that you're a beautiful young man. And I feel touched that you felt comfortable talking to me when everybody knows I have a natural resting bitch face. So for you to come and talk to me, I feel touched, and I hope that a little bit, because I really did not know how to advise besides for what I do, and it was really touching. It was just really touching. And that is something that people need to understand, that they are out there. They are people. They talk. They have feelings. They're not robots. They're not robots.
And I think it's important to know that you don't always have to have the answers, because most of the people that approach me will approach me because I'm loud and a known person. And what I do is I refer. I'm queen of referrals. Like I would have Luke on speed dial. So I'd be like, and as soon as I connect you, I get out of the equation, you know?
Yeah.
That is one thing I felt sad about, that I didn't have anybody to refer him to. That is one thing.
Well, if you are watching, my dear, hit Brandy up at TT's Trans Coalition, their Facebook and Instagram. Just type in TT Trans Coalition, right? Or send PrideUWI an email at PrideTT at info.pridett.com, or just find PrideUWI on Facebook or Instagram and message us. We will put you in
Reach out
contact
to anybody.
with Brandy.
Yeah.
Reach out to anyone. We'll put you
We'll
in
contact you
contact,
to the right people.
right?
If I may make a suggestion, Rudy, I think we're hearing, indirectly the community saying that, hey, people are reaching out to us. We don't have these skills. Maybe some basic training around how do we support, engage, do active listening, how do we do referrals is something that we're hearing out of this conversation. Especially for these, we have to maximize the energies that is coming from this particular group of people. And if they have the tools to continue doing the work, beyond just sharing their experiences, I think we would be setting, a nice handover, so to speak.
We do have some things in store, and in closing, I will share one of the ideas that we spoke about just last night on our Queer Votes Count town hall, in case anyone missed it. So, final question. After this question, we are wrapping up. This was posed anonymously. The question is, as an asexual person looking to meet up with other asexuals for support or socializing, is there any such groups or others that they can meet up? In other words, are there any asexual support groups? Is the question.
I don't know of any.
Well, then we need to be the support. You understand? We need to become the support. So in the absence of a group, because we have great gay groups, you understand? We have numerous gay groups who just out there, you just snap your finger and a gay group just popping up, gay WhatsApp group, everything is a gay group. We have some, well, I don't know how much, but we have trans people who come together to support each other, but we seldom really hear about asexual people. And just like, trans people used to feel excluded, I feel as though the asexual people feeling excluded too. And I would feel excluded if I were asexual, because you seldom hear people speaking about asexuality. They just speak about homosexuality and lesbianism.
Well,
and now trans started to squeeze in.
Micah, we live in a society that all we do is have sex.
Yeah.
Right? So if you are a person who's not interested at all, because even in trying to figure out joining other groups, we love to talk about sex.
Of course. That's without a doubt.
This person obviously wants to be in an environment that is talking about everything else but not sex.
Yeah.
Agreed. With that being said, Rudy, I think one of the projects we could probably add, if it's not on the agenda of projects we have in mind, is rally some asexual people, asexual persons, and give them a forum, create something for them where they have support or a support group for asexual persons.
Yeah.
I think that's something we could also work on as projects after Pride. Pride month.
If anybody here who is watching this or know of someone, let them know. Send us a direct message or something.
I know 2 people.
And we can try to put you all in touch with each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We will provide all of our platforms and resources for anyone who wants to build community.
Maybe it should be a topic we should throw out. I mean, we may not know much about it, but
yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Just talking about it, some might have some people feel okay to say or to mention that they are. Think about it when we were discovering ourselves, how it was. Don't want to. So could you imagine not discussing it at all, and they feel like they're the only person, the only one.
Yes. So that wraps up the Q&A for tonight. It was a very long, very informative talk. I think we need to have another one like this
Very
next
soon.
year and after Pride Month concludes. So with that being said, I would like to thank on behalf of PrideTT and PrideUWI all our amazing panelists for taking the time out to tune in and talk to us and answer different questions, as well as our participants and viewers on Zoom and Facebook. So thank you a lot for indulging us in your night and including us in your night. As Rudy said, we have our needs assessment going around, so kindly fill that in. In that way, we will get all what you want happen in our empowerment manifesto. So that is how we get like hopefully get the sex education into the curriculum and stuff like that. It's through the empowerment manifesto which we doing that. We also have the motorcade coming up on the 26th of July. That's next Sunday. So you need to fill out if you are carpooling, if you are driving, if you want to be on our empowerment buses, you need to fill out that registration form as well to be a
Love
part of.
walk.
Yes, I'm not forgetting the love walk on Sunday. This Sunday, actually, we are PrideUWI. We are having our second annual love walk at the Queen's Park Savannah. We will be meeting at 1 p.m. Beside with the Stallmayer's Castle, is the castle, I believe, right? Walk with your pride gear. If you have no pride gear, that's small thing. We have enough for everybody and everybody to share, right? If you're walking with your doggies are invited as well. Just make sure you clean up after the puppies when they poop, please. Thank you very much. That'll be much appreciated. And Rudy also just mentioned that we got 368 comments. I believe it's on our Facebook Live. So it was a very intuitive evening on both platforms. Because tonight I think we got a lot of young persons involved in terms of my age, which is around 20, 22, younger, maybe older, who are probably still in university. Something that was spoken about last night at our talk last night is that I would like to have basically like a marginalized group of students because UWI is the only PrideUWI is the only Pride group that is in universities. And I would like to have one big group for all university students where we could feel safe and come and talk.
Uni Pride.
Unipride.
Unipride.
Hey,
I was
Unipride.
thinking of a name. So Unipride, I am tomorrow.
I
I
approve.
get a chance to do it today. I am tomorrow going to reach out to the University of Trinidad and Tobago Student Guild, their executive guild. I will reach out to other universities as well to see if they would be up, like to be a part of it, because students, we students need to be represented as well. Faith, quickly.
Yeah, the last thing I wanted to say, I can't remember what event this is for us now, as in the number of events we've had. But if you want to see more of these, if you want to the entire community become more visible, the simplest thing you can do right now is to help us and help yourself by donating. And I tell you, no donation is too small. It all adds up. We've got a TT page. Go to it. Fund Me TT, you can do it that way. If you have no card, it can be done through an NLCB booth. Or just call us up, send us a message, tell us come collect your $10, your $30, your $100, whatever you can. Every little bit helps. We have the Sasha Memorial, the Sasha Fierce Memorial Fund, which goes to Trans Coalition to help with their needs. We all have needs. The community has a lot of needs. Let's see if we can get something going. That's it for me. And thank you everybody for being here, Thanks to all the panelists, UE Pride.
Let me just add something, Shahan, before we go.
Quickly, please.
Okay, so if you're looking for like any merchandise,
Yes,
like
we
you could
already
probably
bring up. We
Okay,
already
my
bring
bad.
them up, but we are coming out
Crap.
with our own merch line. We are in the process of.
Nice.
I am in the process of looking up different different prices and different costings for those things. So we will be coming out. PrideTT will be coming out with their own merch line, bigger, better, and way more affordable than Pride Island, if I may say so. Right?
I will say my closing words.
With
words is that sex is a beautiful thing. It's an important part of who we are as human beings, and it is a small part of who we are as a human being. But sex should be beautiful always, if and when you are ready, and always feel safe and comfortable to say no.
Yeah.
Yes.
Consent, big up consent.
I have said this numerous times, is that it's okay to say no right before anything happens. You could be stripped down right before anything happens. You can say no. Do not feel bad to say no.
At any time, not just
at any time.
Anytime, at any time. And even if God forbid, I'm knocking on a piece of wood, you keep saying no. Just say no. That's all you
Until you
need.
feel
Say
comfortable.
no.
But feel free to say yes too.
I try.
It is the same.
Feel free to say yes as well. Guys, it's 20 past 11 in the night,
Yes,
and
yes,
I
yes.
think we need to let our lovely panelists and everyone
Chains the
go.
drag.
So again, thank you so much.
See you next
tuning in
time,
tonight.
Brandy.
Right? Don't forget to come out and support us on the different events and contribute. Right, check PrideTT.com for the contribution, the pink contribution button in top right hand corner. Thank you so much again.
Thank you, everyone.
Happy
Bye.
Pride.
Goodbye, good friend. Goodbye.
Happy
Michael,
Pride.
Period. A kiss for you. So thank you again, guys. Be safe.
Have a good
Have
night.
fun.
My battery on 1%. I go on earlier.
Bye, Michael.
Bye.
Happy